building a carer-friendly city. And I'd like to ask Catherine Lane to come and read your question, please. Hi, welcome.
I'm a part-time carer for my father. For many carers, a car is not just a mode of transport, it is a place of safety, somewhere to deal with difficult moments privately, away from a crowded pavement. It gives freedom to visit shops and cafes that would otherwise be impossible to access with a wheelchair. My father holds a blue badge. Drop off and pick off on a road is not enough. A carer cannot leave a very vulnerable person whilst they're inside a hairdresser. They must park right outside and stay with them at all times. Western Road's red route makes this impossible. Disabled bays 50 metres or 200 metres away, if occupied, are no use. The strategy commits to being a carer-aware city. Will Cabinet review implementing the Western Road red route in light of a carer-friendly city strategy, a strategy it is committed to, but which this red route undermines?
Thanks very much for your question, Catherine. You're welcome to sit and listen to the response. I've asked Councillor Mouton to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your question, Catherine, and for highlighting this very real challenge faced by carers supporting vulnerable residents along Western Road. I want to begin by recognising the important point that you make, and for many carers, a vehicle is not simply a means of transport, but an essential, flexible space that enables them to provide safe, responsive, and dignified support. This is essential to have when caring for somebody with complex or fluctuating needs, where remaining close to at hand is vital. The Council is committed to becoming a carer-friendly city, and we are actively working to embed that commitment across our services. Red routes are also widespread in London and being introduced in other cities. The Brighton and Hove red routes have been designated to improve road safety, reduce congestion and support more reliable bus services along some of our city's busiest corridors. We have learnt from our own experience in the city and will continue to make improvements in design during the during the Experimental Traffic Regulation Order, or ETRO. However, it is essential that these objectives are balanced with the needs of disabled residents and carers. In response to these concerns, in our careful design as consulted on, blue badge holders will continue to benefit from exemptions on red routes, including the ability to stop for pick-up and drop-off where it is safe to do so. We also provide in designated disabled bays at intervals along Western Road, carefully located to maintain access to key destinations. This is in addition to the disabled bays on many of the side streets on Western Road, and provides entire coverage of the scheme within a 50-metre radius of the nearest disabled bay. To emphasise this, there will be no point of this route more than 50 metres from a designated disabled parking bay. The scheme has been subjected to an equality impact assessment, which specifically considers the needs of disabled people and carers. That said, we acknowledge that your point that for some carers, short stay parking close to a destination where they can remain with the person they support is not the same as drop off and pick up. For that reason, we will continue to monitor the implementation of the Western Road red route closely, including gathering feedback from carers and disabled users via the Disabled Car User Advisory Group and other users. We are committed to reviewing whether the location, number and operation of disabled parking bays and exemptions are sufficient. It's important to recognise this is an experimental order, and as such we will be monitoring and making changes where appropriate in the 6 months to 1 year from the start of the operation, with ongoing consultation throughout this period. Thank you again for raising this important issue and helping ensure that the voices of carers are part of this ongoing work.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So the Cabinet...
Can you use your own microphone?
Thank you very much for your careful and considered response, which I appreciate. The Cabinet decided in March 2025 to implement this scheme without consulting disabled people or carers. Now they propose to monitor the harm after it has been done. That's not governance, that is asking my father to be the experiment and hoping he lives long enough to be the experiment. A scheme that has not yet been built to be stopped. The fact that Cabinet will not stop it tells you everything about how seriously they take the carer-friendly city strategy that they adopted this afternoon or intend to adopt this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to move now to Pamela Stiles, who is joining us online. Good morning, Pamela. I think you've got your microphone muted still. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Great. Yes, we can hear you. Would you like to read your question, please?
Yes, I will. Thank you very much. Good morning. Myself and my neighbours welcome the proposal to prohibit unauthorised overnight parking of lived-in vehicles on council-owned land. This has been an issue in Rodine car park for far too long and is something I have raised with you time and again over years, not just weeks. We cannot wait further years for the Rodine car park ongoing encampment to be addressed, and residents here are concerned that the PSPO process will take a long time. We have repeatedly asked for the height barrier to be reinstalled at the entrance to the car park, and we have even offered to ask local residents who contribute to Residents Association Fund to help with funds to do this. I put in an application to the recent SIL available money project for our area, and this proposal did make the shortlist. Please, can you agree to take this forward as soon as possible? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pamela. I'm going to come to Councillor Daniel for a response.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pamela. So in terms of the bid to the SIL fund, that won't come to me so for a decision, so I can't talk on that particular point. But what I can say is that the PSPOs are used to address specified activities that have a detrimental effect on the quality of life in a locality. It doesn't do everything to do with encampments. It does very specific things. We are, in parallel to bringing these PSPO orders forward, consider also not only doing work on encampments generally speaking, but also bringing forward policy papers on that. And I would say that I just want to say for people who are living in vehicles or who are homeless, those approaches will be a welfare first model. So we won't be making people's whose lives are already difficult more difficult, and there are legal protections for people who are both homeless or who are ethnically travellers as well. So that's a complex picture, but what I would say is that we are reviewing that site and other sites and looking at a broader range of tools to respond to unauthorised encampments, not least because they can be very unsafe for the people in those camps, as well as create issues for local communities around them. It will include the development of traffic regulation orders and the allocation of resources in the way that you suggest. Sometimes it will be measures that make it difficult to bring bigger vehicles onto areas where they're not suitable. So it will be a range of issues, but the paper today, PSPOs, is not intended to resolve every issue to do with encampments. So I think that's a misunderstanding in relation to what PSPOs are for. And in terms of the timescales of PSPOs, Pamela, this will go out to consultation, and the intention is that the ones that we have will all be in place, that subject to public consultation by September. So it's not a super long process. There is a legal process to go through, but it's not super long. And you will be able to put your thoughts on that. If you believe that there should be a PSPO in that area that's really specific, then by all means use the Your Voice platform to put your view forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela, and thank you, Councillor Daniel, for the response. We now turn to matters referred to the executive, of which there are none today. So that brings us to member questions. I believe we have 3 opposition members in attendance, either in person or online, and so I plan to rotate through those members with each asking 2 questions, and then we'll see where we get to. There are 15 minutes allocated for this agenda item. I'm starting, I think, with Councillor Sykes. Welcome, Councillor Sykes.
Thank you, Chair. Questions on improving fire safety in council homes. 3 of the 8 blocks earmarked for pre-tender financial support are higher risk buildings due to their height, and therefore require remediation plans to be considered by the building safety regulator within the HSE rather than local building control. The BSR, from personal experience out with my council life, continues to be under-resourced, with the applications taking up to a year to be considered rather than the 8 weeks set out in the regulations. This doesn't seem to be reflected substantively in the paper in terms of the potential delay. How would such delays affect programme and funding?
Thank you, Councillor Sykes. I'm going to ask Councillor Williams to respond.
Thank you for your question. Now, the impact of any delays with the building safety regulator experienced by the council would be raised, of course, as part of our regular cladding safety service scheme engagement meetings with Homes England, which we do commit to regularly. We are advised that Homes England are also engaging with the building safety regulator on progress of the cladding safety scheme. Thank you for your question.
Councillor Sykes, do you want to ask your second question?
Okay. All right, it's about TBM. The housing subsidy budget area has revealed an increasing shortfall or budget pressure over the past 2 years, totaling just over 5 million in 2025-6. The concern is that the additional liability to our general fund arising from the lack of any subsidy to housing benefit claims from this group of claimants, and the fact that this pressure rose by 1.7 million over a year. The pressure is effectively out of our control as it depends on DWP assessments of capability to work, as well as the general impact of the housing crisis. The TBM paper states merely that a recovery plan is in place to minimise the ongoing housing benefit subsidy losses. What's the projected pressure here in 26-27 and beyond, and what representations is the administration making with DWP and Treasury to reduce the impact on our financial position? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Councillor Sykes, for the question. As you sort of draw out, it's a real issue, and it's a bit of a nightmare, really. I know other councils are dealing with it. The issue of housing subsidy loss is caused by the changing criterion for determining vulnerability in supported accommodation claims, and as you say, that poses an ongoing risk for sort of financial uncertainty for the council. In terms of mitigations, there's sort of three strands being worked on. New processes being implemented to minimise the risk by more frequent and detailed reviews of placements to try and get a grips on the impact in terms of subsidy and loss. Revisiting previously ineligible tenants whose circumstances may have changed, and then also encouraging providers to become registered social landlords, which will then obviously mitigate the underlying issue. In terms of lobbying and representations, yes, we sent a letter to Stephen Timms MP, who's the relevant Minister for Social Security and Disability, setting out our position. The response was positive in terms of it acknowledged the difficulties we're facing and confirmation that our concerns and requests have been acknowledged and are being considered. And as I say, a lot of other councils are making similar representations. In terms of this year's position, it was known about and acknowledged within budget setting, but in terms of forecast for this year, we will see that in the first TBM, which will come shortly.
Thank you, Councillor Sykes. I'd like to ask Councillor Hill to ask your questions.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. So my questions are on item 12, the carers strategy. So my first question is, one of the themes in this document is about improving and increasing access to respite provision, with 37.5% out of 40 carers surveyed currently accessing no respite support. The proposal to close Wellington House Day Centre would seem to reduce access to respite, in my view, and moreover is the view of those protesting the proposals today. How will the administration seek to improve access to respite despite the financial pressures on the adult social care budget?
Thanks, Councillor Hill. I'm going to ask Councillor Alexander to respond.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Hill. The consultation about the future of Wellington House relates to re-providing the respite at the centre elsewhere and for like. So a closure of Wellington House will not mean a reduction in respite capacity. Improving access to respite is a key element of supporting family and friend unpaid carers. There are a range of options for providing respite, from residential to home-based, and a number of routes to accessing them. Adult Social Care, in partnership with the Carers Hub, have drafted a new information sheet to support carers through the process of seeking respite, either by themselves or through the local authority. Additionally, we do commit in the strategy to produce a respite policy, and this will be co-produced with carers and carer organisations, and will include a comprehensive review of the current respite options to gain greater insight, and will identify options for enabling carers to receive a break from caring, and for the cared for person to access short breaks as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Alexander. Councillor Hill, your next question.
So my second question is also on the carer strategy, although it relates to a specific graphic, which is the King's Fund graphic shows that there is a wide gap between the total proportion of people caring for a mother or mother-in-law at 34% in total versus those caring for a father or father-in-law at 16%. Would you agree with me that this could suggest that there is a greater degree of unmet care needs amongst fathers or father-in-laws? I appreciate people who are fathers may also receive care from people who aren't children, but such a wide gap between mothers and fathers seems significant. So I'm interested in your thoughts on this. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hill. Councillor Alexander.
So the national data does suggest that older women are more likely to receive unpaid care than older men, but this is primarily due to demographics. The King's Fund report highlights that more mothers and fathers are cared for by unpaid carers, largely because women have longer life expectancies than men, and so therefore they have increasing needs as they age. And also this demographic is also mirrored within formal care provisions as well. However, through the improved collection of local data within the strategy, we will be able to increase the knowledge of local carers and can target services as necessary in response to any gaps in provision. So it is basically just because there are more older women with frailty than older men because they live longer. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Alexander. I'd like to invite Councillor Macleay to come and ask your 2 questions, please.
Thank you, Chair. Question 19. Given the report highlights both urgency and constrained capacity, what evidence or benchmarking gives you confidence that the current delivery timelines are genuinely achievable, particularly in the context of sector-wide delays in fire safety remediation, and what contingency plans are in place if they slip?
Councillor Williams.
Thank you for your question. So the delivery timelines for utilising the cladding safety scheme funding are set by Homes England, and in requesting Cabinet approval for the procurement and award of a team of consultants to carry out the pre-tender works, we are seeking to work at pace to put in place our specialist delivery team in order to mitigate as far as possible the risks around the high national demand for those engineers. All councils are working towards this aim, and the consultant services. So we will continue to work and engage with Homes England, including their monthly monitoring of progress with the CSS to reflect any issues arising from capacity or timelines. Thank you.
Councillor Macleay.
Thank you, Councillor Williams, for that response. On the same topic, question 20, the report notes that Homes England funding is allocated on a block-by-block basis and cannot be redirected. While I fully support the Council doing all it can to ensure the safety of residents in our social housing, given that St James House is expected to be demolished in the next 5 to 7 years, were Homes England made aware of these redevelopment plans prior to the funding being awarded, and how are we ensuring this represents good value for public money? Thanks.
Thank you for your question. So I'm a bit surprised at this question because, yes, we are all aware, and yes, of course they're aware, of the plans for the future of St James's House. But there are people living in there for quite some time, and we still have to keep it safe. And this is, this decision was taken by Homes England to fund this. And I think that even though they are going to be in the next 5 to 7 years going to be moving out, in the meantime, we have to keep them safe, and that is what we're going to be doing. So they've approved a cladding safety scheme pre-tender based on the assessment of risk. And in relation to St James's House, this does align with the commitment of the council to that safety measures for those blocks. And this does include St James's House. They need to remain safe to occupy while we have residents in those homes. Thank you for your question.
Councillor Macleay, I think you've got one more question on the community cohesion roadmap, and I think we've still got time. So do you want to ask that question?
Thank you, Chair. The report highlights increasing pressures and polarisation and tensions between communities. How will the roadmap ensure the Council maintains a fair and balanced approach to support all communities equally and avoid the perception of favouring or responding disproportionately to the demands of any one group.
Councillor Alexander.
Thank you for your question. The roadmap will be underpinned by clear principles of fairness, equity and evidence-led practice to ensure that the Council supports all communities in a balanced and proportionate way. It will draw on robust data, community insight and partnership working to understand and respond to issues affecting different groups while maintaining a constant and transparent approach to decision making. Importantly, as it says in the report, the process of developing the roadmap will in itself be designed to support and strengthen community cohesion. This means actively bringing communities together through inclusive engagement, creating opportunities for dialogue, and ensuring that different perspectives are heard and understood in a constructive way. Engagement will be broad and inclusive, ensuring that a wide range of voices are heard rather than just responding to any single interest. In addition, our engagement with the national organisation Belong will support us to learn from other areas and apply good practice, helping to ensure a balanced and informed approach. This will be supported by clear governance, regular review and also ongoing scrutiny by members. Thank you.
Thanks very much. We now move to member representations, and I think you're up first, Councillor Macleay. So do you want to take it away? You've got up to 3 minutes to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was glad to see this report on the Cabinet agenda. This is an important time to take community cohesion seriously and set out a clear, credible approach to rebuilding trust and cohesion across our city. The risks outlined in the report include declining trust, growing fear, division, and the spread of misinformation, which are already being felt across our communities. In my ward, residents in blocks such as Rosehill Court tell us how they feel forgotten, and confidence in services is eroding. Through the Antisocial Behaviour in Social Housing Task and Finish Group, we also heard concerning accounts of racism and intimidation, including persistent low-level harassment that escalates over time if left unchallenged. I support the ambition of this roadmap, particularly its focus on early intervention, partnership working, and evidence-based action. However, I want to stress that this cannot become another strategy without meaningful follow-through. Too often, we see nice worded intentions not matched by delivery. In the current climate, residents need to see action, not just words of commitment. We need to rebuild trust. I note the lack of meaningful progress following the Green Group motion in October 2025, which appeared to stall amid pressure of fear of reputational backlash. This reflects a wider issue where political debate can become constrained and decision-making overly risk-averse, leading to inaction. I would welcome reassurance on several points. First, how will the Council ensure a fair and consistent approach that supports all communities equally, which has been responded to already? And I hope that we will have more transparency in decision-making, and that be an essential part of that. Second, how will this be delivered in practice across the organisation? This work must be embedded across all services, not confined to one team. What investment will be made in training staff to handle complex issues such as racism, misinformation and community tensions so that they feel confident and that they can deliver it fairly? I recently heard a parent prevented from fundraising for a medical charity supporting Palestinians. The advice shared with the school was maybe not correct. And so we need to be looking at how we're supporting our educators and schools with clear guidance to not inadvertently reinforce bias and discrimination. What is the role that schools play in building cohesion at an early age, and how can we support them in helping young people navigate differences and challenging harmful narratives? I am concerned about declining funding for voluntary and community organisations. These are the groups that are often the most trusted and play a vital role in reaching communities that statutory services cannot. Investment in them should be a priority.
Thank you, Councillor Macleay. You're at your 3 minutes.
Okay, that went quickly.
We don't normally respond to representations, but I think it's very important as a matter of record. I respond to some of the things that you've said in your representation because, to my mind, they contain assumption, speculation, and actually misinformation, which is so dangerous in the context of talking about community cohesion. You made a reference to the motion that was brought last October by the Green Group, which was amended by the Labour Group. That motion was actually outdated before it was even brought because we'd already taken action to write to the East Sussex Pensions Committee about the issue of divestment, particularly divesting, ensuring that pensions that may have investments in companies or bodies operating in the West Bank were divested from. So this administration had already taken action on that. I actually viewed your motion as an attempt to stir things up and cause further division in this city. It was not necessary because we were already doing it. We've gone on to do it. We have pursued it. We have written to the East Sussex Pensions Committee. Interestingly, the only member of that committee that has any representation that is reflective of the politics of this city is one Green member of that committee that has said absolutely nothing publicly about divestment. So that issue actually rests more with your party than it does with ours. You have the ability to do something about it. You have not done anything about it. But what you have done is you've whipped up issues in this city, and it's been really, really unfortunate. So to see you bring that issue here today, when we are setting out a proactive, evidence-led approach to community cohesion, is more than disappointing. I'm going to ask Councillor Sykes to come make his representation.
And I can't respond to that then, so you get to put that to me.
You've made your point, I've made mine. It's now time for Councillor Sykes to make his representation.
There's a whole faction of community that you've obviously not engaged with on that particular topic.
That's not true. That's not true at all. Councillor Sykes, it is.
Sorry, too many buttons. So the outturn for 25-26, the TBM headlines are a break-even position as projected at month 9. That's a quote from the paper. Looks like good news from our Labour administration. Finances under control. Nothing's changed since the start of the year. All's rosy with the world. Clearly the picture is far from rosy. It's smoke and mirrors financials again. Labour's prioritising positive headlines over openness and honesty. At month 9, the projected service overspend was nearly 9 million, 8.842 to be precise. Between month 9 and end of year, this massive projected overspend was reduced slightly by means of spend controls. But the bulk of the in-year deficit, more than 6 million, was met by using one-off money, reserves and flexible use of capital receipts. The paper today states there's a structural shortfall of 7 to 8 million that will carry forward. One of the sticks often used to beat the Greens with is the 3.02 million overspend in the last year of the previous Green minority administration, and this was met from reserves. The difference between the two positions, apart from now being twice as bad as then, is openness and honesty. As I said at Budget Council, the administration knew at the start of the year they wouldn't be able to balance the books in 25-26, so they changed plans, raided all sorts of reserves in the year to ensure the headline position was break-even by end financial year. This presents a skewed picture to the public, and regarding financial management, also introduces moral hazard in terms of incentivisation to efficiency. The solutions to balancing council finances lie at the doors of both local and national government, but how we manage that is 100% the responsibility of the local council administration. And this isn't an isolated case when it comes to Labour obscuring the state of council finances. On the King Alfred, we heard denial that the risk budget was being dipped into recently, early, when the very cabinet paper said the risk budget was being used. On Brickfields, we saw unprecedented additional level of redaction, so even scrutiny councillors couldn't access key financial information. Now the administration is hiding an overspend behind in-year internal borrowing. Our council is running on fumes. No one, not even Labour, has a monopoly on wisdom. At a difficult time for all councils, please can this Labour administration follow the Nolan principles of openness, honesty and accountability when it comes to reporting on and managing our council's finances. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sykes. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Councillor. I don't know, as you know, you don't normally come back. I just want to respond because the report is so much later and you may not be in the room. It's sort of 3 hours later. I'm not going to make it even political. I'm going to just respond with this, which is, it would be a fair enough thing to say if it were true. I'm literally looking at the report now. So you're suggesting that we're presenting a break-even position and not acknowledging some of the actions. It's literally written in the front of the report. I'll read it to you. It was assumed the position would be break-even out term. However, this was due to, and it was achieved, a combination of spending controls and the application of central decisions to manage the position. Therefore, the position is in line with assumptions. However, it's worth noting, etc., releasing centrally held funds. So we haven't actually done what you've said. By the way, I haven't put out any press or comments on it. I haven't claimed anything yet. Let's see what I say in my speech. But the report, and I think it's a bit disingenuous, really, to suggest what you have versus what officers have put in the report is very clear. There have been one-off actions taken to get to the break-even position. Now, that is different to an overspend that draws down the general working balance, because reserves can be released if they're not needed. I mean, we don't hold reserves for fun. We hold reserves if we need them. So in-year reserves relating to all sorts of other capital projects, etc., should be released if we don't need them to try and get to a break-even position. It's good, in my opinion, for the council to get into a discipline of not overspending on its general fund and drawing down our working balance each year. It is good to get in the discipline of not holding reserves if we don't need them. And it is good, is what we have done, to build up our working balance, which I know was opposed at Budget Council. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. I'm going to take us now to our substantive reports for this morning, which starts with the development of a community cohesion roadmap for Brighton and Hove. I'm going to ask Councillor Alexander to present the report.
Thank you. So this report is asking for Cabinet's agreement this morning to develop a community cohesion roadmap for Brighton and Hove. Cabinet is not being asked to approve a final roadmap at this stage, but is being asked to approve the development approach and agree that a further report will be brought back to consider and adopt once the engagement work has been completed. The roadmap will set out a shared definition of community cohesion, a clear framework for action, and I mean action, strengthened governance, and an approach to measurement and accountability. We are a city that's shaped by diversity, creativity, and a commitment to fairness and belonging. But sadly, communities are experiencing increasing pressures linked to polarisation, online misinformation, global conflicts, the cost of living crisis, and widening inequalities. These pressures are being felt locally through increased tensions, hate incidents, and in some areas declining trust in institutions, all of which can undermine the feeling of safety, belonging, and trust. Our proposed approach is aligned with the Local Government Association's guidance, known as Common Ground, and the government strategy protecting what matters, moving towards a more confident, cohesive and resilient UK while reflecting the unique strengths, risks and the lived experience within our city. This report seeks Cabinet agreement to a structured partnership and a community engagement process to develop the community cohesion roadmap. The proposed approach will complement existing partnership priorities, including those of the Community Safety Partnership, and will strengthen prevention and early intervention across key issues. So what is community cohesion? Cohesion describes how well people live together, including whether people feel they belong, feel safe, trust each other, and can navigate disagreement without harm. Community cohesion is often used in two related ways. Community cohesion on a local neighbourhood level. This considers the quality of everyday relationships between people and groups. For example, whether residents from different backgrounds have positive contact, feel safe and feel included locally, and whether they experience strong and trusting relationships in their own neighbourhoods and communities. And then there is social cohesion, which is more of a city-wide civic level, which considers the wider social and the democratic glue that helps society function, including trust in public institutions and services, shared commitment to rights and responsibilities, and the ability to handle disagreements peacefully while safeguarding freedoms. Our use of the term community cohesion seeks to encompass both of these areas. In this way, community cohesion is understood as referring to the everyday lived reality of our diverse city, where the people from different backgrounds can live together, build trust, and take an active part in local life. It is not simply the absence of conflict. It is the presence of positive relationships, inclusion, and a shared confidence that everyone can feel that they belong and that they can participate safely. Community cohesion can be seen as having 4 core building blocks: relationships and trust, belonging and inclusion, participation and voice, and fairness and access. Brighton Hove is a vibrant, diverse, and creative city. It is home to a large LGBTQI+ communities, diverse faith, racial and ethnic communities, strong arts and cultural networks, 2 universities, and a significant population of people seeking sanctuary here. Evidence and lived experience shared through communities and our partners indicate particular concerns about rising community tensions linked to national and international events. And sadly, we have seen here increases in Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, racism, misogyny, ableism, and LGBTQI+ hate. And there is currently a heightened sense of fear and distress reported by some of our communities. Economic pressures and declining mental health and well-being for some, and high housing costs also drive inequality and instability, with increasing demand on health, housing, social care, and safety services. The voluntary and community sector play a crucial role in supporting cohesion. The case for developing a community cohesion roadmap now is both preventative and practical, to provide a shared language, a partnership approach to risk and resilience, clearer priorities and accountability, and a more consistent approach to addressing misinformation, hate, and exclusion. Cabinet is being asked today to agree a structured engagement and co-production process to develop the roadmap. The developing of the roadmap will strengthen relationships by sharing, understanding, and building trust across the system and our communities. The report seeks agreement to the approach rather than the adoption of an action plan at this stage. The action plan will be developed and prioritised with members, partners, and communities, and then refined for a test and learn approach. Cross-party input will be supported through engagement with the overview and scrutiny committees, and a final draft roadmap will then be brought back to Cabinet for review and agreement. Discussions have already commenced with Belong. Belong are a national community cohesion network that has worked extensively with the Local Government Association, as well as working with other local authorities on community cohesion strategies. Opportunities for joint working are being explored, which could provide access to national lottery funding to support our development of the community cohesion roadmap. Development of the roadmap will include various phases: the evidence and insight phase, engagement with lived experience phase, co-production of priorities phase, and then the governance, ownership, and accountability phase. The intended outputs of the engagement process will include an agreed city definition and shared language on cohesion, a prioritised roadmap with a set of deliverable actions and clear ownership, strengthened partnership governance and reporting arrangements, and an approach to measuring impact, including indicators, dashboard, and public reporting. An oversight governance model to support the delivery of the roadmap will also be consulted as part of the process. A key part of the proposed approach is culture change, ensuring that council and partners consistently apply a community cohesion lens to existing services, activities, plans and decisions, so that we avoid unintended harm to cohesion and, wherever possible, actively strengthen belonging, safety, participation and trust through what we already do. This means embedding cohesion considerations into everyday practice and not treating cohesion as a separate standalone programme. So this report seeks Cabinet agreement today to undertake a structured partnership and community engagement process to develop the Community Cohesion Roadmap. The approach will align with recognised good practice, the LGA's Common Ground Guidance, a shared language, partnership working and cohesion as a long-term endeavour. Work to date has focused on delivering an initial evidence-informed framework to shape the proposed engagement. This has drawn national guidance, local data, and learning from community and partnership engagement, including One Voice, Equip, and feedback from faith and third sector partners. The next phase will involve wider and deeper involvement with communities and partners to co-shape priorities, governance and measures, particularly with those affected by cohesion pressures and those holding key system responsibilities. Engagement will be delivered through a staged approach within available resources, combining evidence and insight, engagement with lived experience, co-production of priorities and test and learn refinement. The scope will include residents across neighbourhoods and communities of interest, with a particular focus on underrepresented groups, alongside faith communities, voluntary and community organisations, and statutory partners, including police, health, housing and education. And I would like to thank officers for their dedication and passion for this really important work. And I especially want to thank Nahida and Richard. And I want to say a big well done also to officers, especially Lucy, and all the volunteers, residents and groups involved in our recent successful application to be a recognised Council of Sanctuary. And I do hope that all my Cabinet colleagues are in support of the development of this very important roadmap. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Alexander. Questions, comments on the report? Councillor Mooton.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Alexander. I really highlight how very important this is. I want to thank you for your very informed and deep presentation. There's a lot of very, very powerful and important points there, and the hard work of yourself and officers in building this strategy and plan. I very much welcome this, and I think it is absolutely about that time we've really got the grip of this. The concern I have is multiple, but I'll highlight a few points. I'll start with a negative and deep concern that very powerful and wealthy people are misusing social media, manipulating the division and suspicion of the other to gain more power and wealth, in fact, via that route. And often they're targeting some more vulnerable people in our community. So in fueling suspicion of people they don't know. And the urgency of building bridges between communities, between people who perhaps don't know one another so well, is vital to counter what is a very toxic and potent concern on social media. So this is vital. But I also want to highlight some very good work that I'm aware of within the faith communities. Earlier this month, I attended SACRA Committee, the Schools and Colleges Religious Education Committee. And at that meeting, it was described to the committee an imam and a rabbi going together into a school, and to several schools actually, and the response they got was from some of the kids, well, you're together, you're friends, you're things like this. And just the physical presence of two faith leaders in a community space in that way was so important to counter perhaps a narrative that some of those people present may have otherwise experienced. So I want to highlight the good work that some of the faith communities in our city are doing. We have many synagogues and mosques, but also churches as well. Many of them are very diverse, and some are also very focused on particular groups, such as the Coptic Church in my ward. And I do want to highlight the good work they're doing and the importance of engaging well with those faith communities and other communities within our city to build bridges and connection and build trust amongst groups, because there are some communities in our city are very concerned, are very fearful at this time, and by building trust and understanding between one another, I think we can do so much more as a city. I'm very proud to live in this city where being able to be oneself and be proud of that, with amongst others of different viewpoints, is so vital to our progressive and wonderful city. And I really do honour and thank you for this report, and I really hope for its great success. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Meaton. Councillor Asdersman.
Thank you, Chair. It is great to see everyone coming together and supporting one another. A strong community is built on kindness, respect, and teamwork. Thank you to everyone who helps make our community welcoming and inclusive. Working together makes our community stronger and more connected. It is inspiring to see people from different backgrounds supporting each other. Everyone act kindness helps build more united community. Together, we can create a place where everyone feels valued and included. Community spirit shines when we listen, help, and celebrate one another. Proud to be part of the community that care for each other, and a small acts to support makes big difference to our community. We can thrive if we work together and be kind together, stronger together, kindness together, and building, connecting, and creating belonging. Every voice matters, every person belongs, and community is the best where everyone feels welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Asdersman. I couldn't agree more. Councillor Rokins, I had.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a quick reflection, I suppose, that, you know, having grown up largely in the, 80s and 90s and everything, you end up with the sort of general sense that that communities are becoming less divided, more cohesive. And I suppose that where we've got to now in recent years is just a reminder that you really can't take your eye off the ball, and that you can't take that progress for granted, and that sometimes it can feel like things are going backwards. And I think this is really, really important work. I'm sort of sad that it's necessary, I suppose, but I'm obviously very supportive of it. I think it's clearly much needed. So thank you to Councillor Alexander, and again to Nahida and Richard, who I know take this extremely seriously. Yeah, that was it. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Rokins. Councillor Robin.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything everyone said, but also I would like to concentrate a bit on, I think you called it the civic side, where perhaps we're looking to community, rather than communities of different faiths, different religions, we're looking to communities that are mixed, and saying that what sometimes pulls people together are much smaller things, perhaps a development in that area that people don't like or whatever. The amount of times I've been to community meetings where people have said, it used to be more, people would say, oh, a bloke round the pub said that you're going to do this, or you're going to do that, or you're going to... It's now, I read on Facebook that this is going to happen and that's going to happen, something else is going to happen. And I think those of us in a certain amount of authority sometimes forget that it's our duty to keep people informed of what actually is happening rather than not. And if we don't, we create a vacuum that these misinformation in Facebook or the bloke round the pub or whoever's saying it grows, and that's where it fills that vacuum that we're leaving. So I think it's really important that we look at perhaps some of those smaller areas where we make sure we're engaging with people. I went to one the other week where we're developing some council properties in an area in Portslade, and it was obvious that the only reason that everybody felt upset and aggrieved by it was because they hadn't been told, they hadn't been informed, they hadn't been kept up to date with what was happening. So I think the whole thing is important, but as well as what we're talking about, the major sort of cohesion, that there is this sort of cohesion that draws people in, draws people together. I noticed you listed all the things there that sport and various other things that will join people together. And I think that's really important, and that's where we must keep out the misinformation.
Thanks very much, Councillor Robbins. Before we take decision on this roadmap, I think it's important to make clear that this isn't the start of the work that our Labour administration is doing on cohesion. In fact, from when we first came into administration 3 years ago, we have started to look at everything that this council does through the lens of community cohesion, recognising, as others have commented today, that very sadly this country is now in probably a more divided place than it's ever been during my lifetime. And that in order to respond to what are very positive, but very toxic, very poisonous influences, often in our politics, that seek quite deliberately to stir up division and tension, we need to have a response that is as strong and is as muscular and is very clearly proactively seeking to bring communities together in the small ways that Councillor Robbins mentions, in the big ways, on the really big and crucial issues that matter. And so that work has been ongoing. That's why we now have an emerging community cohesion kind of body of work within the council that is meant to be a kind of golden thread that runs through everything that we are doing and thinking about. So I really welcome this, and I think also to reassure people, this isn't about having a strategy that lands back in 12 months' time. There is active work going on, and there will be a series of milestones over this next year that seek to build community cohesion in the city. Our Cabinet's happy to accept the recommendations in the report today. Agreed. Thank you, colleagues. Our next report is on public space protection orders, and I ask Councillor Daniel to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. So public space protection orders are just one way of reducing antisocial behaviour and environmental harm and the impact of that on residents. I would stress that they are just one way, they are not a magic bullet. So I just want to make that clear. This paper, if approved, launches a consultation on both renewing and extending some of our existing PSPOs and introducing some new PSPOs. If approved, following consultation, they would be in place then for 3 years at a time. If the paper is approved, the consultation will go live on Your Voice, and I would ask colleagues to share that as much as they can with residents. And the questions that they will ask about the proposed PSPOs are they proportionate? What's the impact been, particularly of those existing PSPOs? And what do people think the impact will be of the extensions to existing PSPOs? And is there support for the new proposals around PSPOs? So the issues covered by, often people, as we saw in questions from members which weren't asked but are on the paper and from the public, often people focus on the camping side, but actually PSPOs are a broad range of issues. So our issues include prohibiting the lighting and flying of lanterns, which can be really dangerous and cause fires, single-use barbecues for similar reasons, and they also have like an environmental impact as well, particularly on the beach. Gating passages at the request of the residents of those passages, and a lot around dogs, both where their dogs are excluded from a space and also where dogs might need to wear leads. So I think it would just be best if I highlight the extensions and the new PSPOs, just so that we know what's new. So a proposed extension to the dog-free areas is to make it dog-free in the fenced area in Blakers Park. I know that that's come up many times from residents in that area and has, you know, been an issue of tension there. So that fenced area, it's proposed, should be dog-free. And like, I would have thought these were common sense, but clearly we need to make them written and very clear. It is dog-free on the Preston Park Velodrome and the Preston Park cricket pitch. As I say, I would have thought that was common sense, but clearly not. So we're proposing to bring a PSPO in there. There's, in terms of new ones, one is to ban professional dog walkers in Blakers Park. And that makes so much sense to me. I remember I used to take my daughter there when she was little. And it is such a small park. And the idea that you could bring, you know, a whole bunch of dogs and walk them there. And it's surrounded by roads. So I don't see how that's a good idea. So, but again, in the absence of common sense, there's a proposed new PSPO there as well, which I think is very sensible. We are also proposing to ban unauthorised recreational camping on council land, and I know people focus in on encampments, and we are working on encampments in the broadest sense, but we are not in any way seeking to criminalise homelessness. But you'd be amazed at how many people do actually camp who are just visiting. And we do need to say that is not right and go and pay for a campsite if you want to come on holiday. We're also going to ban unauthorised vehicles on parks. Again, I would have thought common sense. It messes the grass up. It's dangerous. People are, you know, playing on there. But anyway, we're doing that. We also are proposing to ban the takeoff and landing of drones in parks, and that just shows, you know, a bit like government thinking about how to legislate around digital environments and spaces and technology. We're also having to think about how we legislate for new technology, and drones can be intrusive and dangerous if not flown with care. So that's introduced. And also to ban unauthorised trading on parks and seafront areas. And I know that that's something that authorised traders feel is particularly unfair. And I, you know, I have to agree with them on that one. So those are the new proposed areas around PSPOs. So I'd welcome any comments that you have. Oh, and I should just say, I'm just going to turn around and look at Richard. I think there's going to be an all-member briefing on PSPOs shortly. Yes, so there is an opportunity for the wider councillors who aren't on Cabinet, obviously, to have a detailed briefing and Q&A on this issue, as well as participate in the consultation, obviously. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Daniel. I want to pay tribute to you and officers for bringing this forward, which I think contains some sensible proposals. Also want to pay tribute to Councillor Teresa Fowler, who has been like a dog with a bone about the issue in Blakers Park. Excuse the pun. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I completely welcome this report. At my first ever Labour meeting in 2017, the topic on our agenda was the introduction of PSPOs, and Councillor Meadows of a different tribe back then to answer our questions. And yeah, that was my first dive into party politics. Now here I am voting to pass them. So, you know, how time flies. But I think it's really important that we, as an administration and as a council, give our own enforcement teams and the police the tools to keep our public realm pleasant. That's what they're there for, to be important amenity spaces for the 280,000 residents and the millions of visitors that come to our city. I mean, a lot of these PSPOs, which seek to curb nuisances, range from people being cheeky and trying to bend the rules, all the way to criminality that frankly destroys the amenity of our public spaces. And I've seen that throughout our city and worked with ward councillors to try and alleviate it. For example, New Road was taking up more of my time as Cabinet Member for Public Realm than any other road in the city. And we've made really good progress on that. And reintroducing specific PSPOs to deal with the issues that are prevalent there and across other antisocial behaviour hotspots, I think are really important. I'd just like to quote something from back in 2017 when the PSPOs were launched then. Greens have major concerns about the introduction of public space protection orders. They are a blunt and ineffective instrument to deal with antisocial behaviour. And that was from former leader Phelan McCafferty. And I think that shows the difference in approach. I don't think we can just cross our fingers and hope that a magic bullet, as Councillor Daniel said, will come along and solve these issues. We need to be proactively using all the levers at our disposal to give the police the chance to make our city a nice place to live, work and thrive in. I think so many people in our city live in flats without gardens, and so their only outside space they have access to are the kind of public spaces these PSPOs will ensure are usable for everyone, whether with children with accessibility needs. It's really important that we keep them nice, pleasant and good behaviour in all of them. So I really welcome them, and I will certainly be promoting the consultation to my residents, and I hope everyone else will as well.
Thanks very much, Councillor Allen. I think that's a really important point in terms about people's access to outside space, particularly in a city where we know we've got a high number of renters, of private renters, and significant issues with overcrowding. So having public space that is free, accessible, and well managed is critical. Councillor McGregor.
I just wanted to repeat a lot of, I guess, what Jacob has said and Councillor Allen said. I think this has been a massive thing that we've seen on the east side of the city as well. Within Whitehawk, we had a lot of issues around antisocial behaviour, and it felt like things were slow and things were difficult to get through. And I know that the residents and businesses on St James Street have gone through the ringer a little bit, needing that kind of support. And so I think that this, even the kind of conversations we've been having already with businesses in the city have been very, very supportive of the work and the help that they're about to get. So it's not anything groundbreaking to say, but just that we're very, very supportive of it, and thank you so much for all the work on it.
Thanks, Councillor McGregor. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm delighted to see this new policy coming through, or this new policy coming through. As we know, last year there were lots of issues with tents on the lawns, on Hove lawns. I understand from the earlier conversations that this won't come into force until September, which is a shame. But hey ho, we're doing it. My kind of question is, at the end of the 3-year period, can we somehow set this up in a way that it gets automatically reviewed, that there isn't a big gap between this bunch of PSPOs ending and the new lot beginning? Question number one. Question number two relates to unauthorised traders on the seafront. Again, absolutely brilliant to hear that. On behalf of the beach hut owners, we get really peed off with those horrible ice cream vans down on the seafront, upsetting the peace. How will, when these orders come in, which you've said won't be till September, what extra powers, what teeth do we have to get those nasty little vans moved on? Thank you.
I'll take all of the questions and then ask you to come back, Councillor Daniel, if that's all right. Councillor Robbins.
Well, I haven't really got a question. I've got some more comments, but if that's okay, I'll make them. And firstly, I'm really grateful that this is coming through, not least because I won't have to have Councillor Fowler greet me every time she sees me with, when are you going to do something about the dogs on Blakers Park? So that's great. But also the keeping dogs on a lead in cemeteries. I've had particular questions from people about Portslade Cemetery, from the volunteers who work there on a Friday, who say that they're constantly having to clear dog mess up in the cemetery, and that people let their dogs. I mean, we've half joked that what we're going to do is next time he sees a dog running free, he's going to give it a big bone in the hope that it takes it back to its owner, who will have to puzzle where it come from. But being it's a cemetery. But it's a really good thing. And the only thing I would ask is that we put up as many signs as we can, so people know that their dogs are supposed to be on a lead in cemeteries and places like that.
Thanks, Councillor Robbins. Councillor Mooton.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Daniels. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Daniels, for your bringing this report today, and thank you for your very much hard work and working with officers to develop this. This is such an important step, and I very much value that. I value many aspects of this, particularly addressing unauthorised vehicles in parks. They haven't got right to be there. It's good to have powers to address that, and also to welcome the lived-in vehicles aspects of this. There is a need to address that clearly at different parts of the city, and this is very much appreciated. It is ahead of the public consultation quite relevant to distinguish lived-in vehicles from perhaps parked vehicles. Some communities see a parked vehicle near their home, particularly outside controlled parking zones. And they raise concerns about it, often to our parking team. Some of those are properly insured and taxed and therefore legally parked. If they're not, they'll be picked up by the DVLA and responded to accordingly. But it's important to perhaps emphasise that those vehicles that some residents have got concerned have been parked there for some time. That's a matter for the parking team to address, and we are looking at exactly how best to do that, particularly in areas which are not presently restricted by a parking zone. We are absolutely looking to ensure that there's best practice applied, and more than happy within the processes we do have for anybody wishing to report a vehicle of that concern to the council. There is a link on our website for residents to do exactly that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Mooton. Councillor Asdersman.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank you and acknowledge this initiative, Councillor Daniel and the officer, for this great initiative, because the Black Friends of Blackers Park, they did not believe that will be happen, but we loudly telling to the Black Friends of Blackers Park that will be make a decision today. It will happen, and that will this PSP will help make the area more cleaner and safer. And it is good to see action will be taken to reduce antisocial behavior, and the improvement will make the park more enjoyable place for everyone. And thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor Daniel to respond on any questions raised, and then we will move forward.
Oh, thank you, Chair. So just to reiterate, we are working on encampments and just to highlight again, with a welfare first approach in terms of making sure that people have that welfare check before any enforcement is taken. But we are already working to improve our response on encampments and then bring forward a policy, a wider policy that seeks to have that consistency around encampments. One part of that is PSPOs, but only where that relates to people who are camping rather than homeless or travellers. But it is important that we get that in this paper in order to make sure that all the tools are in place that we need to have that consistent approach going forward. But I would want to say we are working on those things, not just waiting for a policy to come forward. PSPOs are reviewed every 3 years, you're right. There's no need to have a gap between them. Yeah, so they can be the next consultation paper like this can come forward in time for there to be no gap. In terms of the vans selling ice cream, I love an ice cream myself. Don't want to be a fun killer, but I do understand that that unauthorised trading can be unfair on businesses that are paying business rates and are doing all the right things. So I think there is a fairness issue there. They can be they can be moved on and fined using the PSPOs, but I'll come back with detail about how to report and how to get that enforcement done, because we're just going out for consultation now, and so there'll be a further paper in September, depending on what the public say in relation to these proposals, and then we can go into the what next kind of thing. Noted about the signage around dogs, and I would say that I just really plead with dog owners to be more responsible. They're not only in picking up after dogs, that I think most people are pretty good on that, but also just being mindful of keeping your dogs on the leads. We do see, sadly, dog attacks on other dogs, problems. Please just be aware and be a social dog owner in that respect. Keep your dog and other people's dogs safe. And I would finally like to thank transport colleagues. They've been so proactive. I know that officers, including Richard Tusa, who's been working on this paper, has specifically commented on how really proactive transport colleagues have been in working together on this and the forthcoming encampments work. Really, great to see that culture that we hoped that bringing our cabinet system in would have on making it more of a one council approach, making sure that departments and policies spoke to each other, coming to life and really feels different now than maybe it did, 3 or 4 years ago. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Councillor Daniel. Are Cabinet colleagues happy to accept the recommendations in this report? Agreed. Thank you, colleagues. Next, we are on to a report concerning the future of Roundabout Nursery in Whitehawk, and I'm going to ask Councillor Daniel to also introduce this report.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for accepting this as an urgent item. I really appreciate it. And I know that there were member questions, and they will be getting written answers to those but they were obviously not unable to make it this morning, which is fair enough because we did have to move this meeting. So this paper is about the transfer of a council nursery to the Aurora Trust, who run the City Academy Whitehawk. And that's a primary school in the Whitehawk area, and they're on the same campus basically. So what's the reason we're doing this? So there's 2 reasons really. It's important to this administration to protect that provision of nursery services in one of our most deprived neighbourhoods. That's at the heart of why this proposal is coming forward. And the reasons for that is because we know that early years work supports our strong commitment to closing that attainment gap and that fairness issue for children who are eligible for free school meals. And 48% of children at that nursery are likely to be in that position. So what we don't do, and I think as opposed to our predecessors in administration, the Greens, is look at a budget pressure and a difficult issue and want to kick it down the road. I don't want to kick the future funding and sustainability of that nursery in Whitehawk down the road. And the reason for that is because those children deserve better and they deserve certainty. And so doing nothing to protect that service for the future is just totally unacceptable to me, and I know also to Councillor Taylor. This transfer protects that service for the future whilst also reducing the pressure on our budget. the school, like us, have a vested interest in ensuring that that provision provides excellent early years care and learning, because those children will be going into that school. So their transition is, they've not only got that vested interest in making sure that that service is excellent in preparing those children for learning, but also will help in terms of managing those that child progression and transition to primary, making it seamless. The school is judged outstanding for its early years education in 2024, and I think that's a really reassuring place to start. I know members will want to know, well, what assurances are in place around this nursery and its quality going forward. So it will be subject to the usual Ofsted early years registration and inspections. It will need to follow our council early years free entitlement provider agreement. The staff within the school, so have the same terms and conditions in respect of NJC scales and pension provider, and the same union recognition as the nursery staff have. And we have a grant agreement during the transition phase, which is a 3-year transition over to the school in its entirety, and that is laid out in the report. And then finally, I'd just like to highlight that the lease on the nursery building restricts its use to that of a nursery, so it cannot change provision. It must be a nursery. So I think that those are the things that I know that colleagues would want to be, well, how are we reassured that in this transfer that service for children is protected? So it's not only from the vested interest in making sure that the children that enter City Whitehawk Academy are ready for learning, that school shares with us, but it's also those other legal frameworks and inspection frameworks. Thank you, colleagues.
Thanks, Councillor Daniel, for the report on this really important issue for all of the reasons that you outline. I've got Councillor Williams.
Thank you, and thank you for the paper. And as a long-time council representative for the area, I'm aware that Roundabout Nursery is well loved by that community, as is the school. I've been to that school on many occasions, and it's a great school. I know it's an academy, but it is a really fantastic school. I am comforted, and I know that the community is comforted, to see in this paper that the school is committed to continuing the delivery of all year round, all day provision of the Roundabout Nursery, because it is very much needed in that area. And I'm also really pleased to see that the staff, there is a commitment to the staff, and the staff are going to be protected, and they will be paid to the government Aurora and the government pension scheme they will be a part of. And Aurora, I'm pleased to say, as a long-time union girl, does recognise the relevant trade unions that the teachers, those staff may be a part of. So all in all, they were my main concerns about this, and they are very well covered. Speaking to members of the community, there is a little bit of nervousness, of course, because it's a change, but the reassurances in this paper, I do believe, will go a long way. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Williams, and thanks to you and Councillor McGregor and Councillor Daniel for all of the work that I know has gone into seeking those assurances and a smooth transition. Councillor McGregor.
I'd just like to repeat that as well. I went to meet the Aurora school a couple of months ago, and kind of gave them that feedback. There was some worry, there was some concern, and they spent a good couple of hours with me, just showing me around, talking through it, and I was just so impressed by the work that they were doing and the things that they were implementing, and being able to just keep that service in Whitehawk and protect it was just so special for us. And like Councillor Williams said, there was a couple of people a wee bit worried, but I think that the conversations that they have and the community engagement they have is going really well, and I'm really pleased that we're able to keep that right in Whitehawk, because it is a really special nursery.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, I want to echo that and thank ward councillors for the way they've engaged it, and obviously Councillor Daniel leading it as cabinet member, but then also Joe Templeman and the rest of the team for handling difficult issue. And as ward councillors have said, lots of reassurances in the paper which are very welcome, because as they have said, a change of any kind can be concerning, and it's really important that parents are taken on this journey and supported and provide those reassurances. I did just want to make one comment, which is also to see the positivity in this development, which I think it's really important to note that in some senses, and irrespective of who's running this particular school, which is obviously an academy trust, but as Councillor Williams says, lots of great things happening at that school. I think this does align with overall government objectives, and indeed something that we think about in the city, which is aligning nurseries with schools and having that feed through. I've seen it work really well in places where you've got nurseries that are attached to schools, and in this case now going to be formally attached to schools. It can really help with that transition, and I think both the excellence of the early years provision, but then also the transition through to primary is one of the really key parts, isn't it? We all know of that early years through to primary, and having the best possible start in life, and particularly where there's some vulnerable families and families facing deprivation. So I did just want to say that I think obviously lots of complex things that are being worked through in this paper, and lots of work still to be done, but we should also see the potential positive here from a transition and from an excellence of early years provision perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Very good points. Are Cabinet happy to agree the recommendations in this report? Agreed. Thank you, colleagues. Our next substantive report this morning is our carer strategy, and we have Councillor Alexander to introduce.
Thank you. So this report seeks Cabinet approval today for the carer strategy 2026 to 2030. Think carer. Building a carer-friendly city, which continues the Council's commitment to supporting the vital role family and friend unpaid carers provide within the city. It delivers both a clear message that carers are valued, their needs have been heard, and they will continue to be supported. Additionally, providing a framework to encourage services and organisations to be carer-friendly. Family and friend unpaid carers make up at least 8% of the population of our city. That is 20,804 unpaid carers in our city, according to the 2021 census. Caring does not discriminate. A carer can be any age, with the youngest young carer registered locally at age only 6 years old. And we have also many carers in their 90s, with many carers supporting more than one person and many of them providing more than 50 hours of care every week. The original carer strategy was launched in 2017. This strategy is the second refresh, continuing to build on the commitment to carers for creating an environment across services and organisations within the city who wish to promote the commitment to being or working towards being carer-friendly through an agreed framework developed in consultation with carers and wider stakeholders. Caring is a unique experience. However, there are a range of common themes regarding the types of care provided, the amount of care provided, and the adverse impact of health inequalities that carers experience. Through refreshing the strategy, the aim is to build on the successful structures created through the original work, including the partnership of support services within the Commission's Carers Hub. The Carers Hub provides a consistent local carers offer, including access to carers assessments, peer support groups, home-based respites to enable carers to be able to attend their own health-related appointments, as well as access to the carers digital offer, which provides a range of free resources. There is also a range of dedicated projects supporting young carers and carers of people with mental health needs, dementia and life-limiting conditions, plus support for working carers and for employers to be carer-friendly. In addition, the Council continues to support the provision of the Carers Card, a unique local discount card for carers who are registered with either the Council or the Carers Hub, providing discounts for carers, including local social activities, leisure services, and a reduced rate on Brighton and Hove buses. The Council continues to provide the Carers Emergency Backup Scheme to enable carers to record a contingency plan, which is held by the Council's 24/7 Care Link service. There is also a successful pilot within the Royal Sussex County Hospital, which encourages the identification and support for carers within the hospital discharge process. The strategy has been shaped by a variety of consultation events and activities with family and friend unpaid carers in the city. It is shaped by partnership working, shaped by local evidence regarding the impact of caring, shaped by national policy and legislation, and it is shaped by national research, guidance, and best practice for reducing the known health inequalities. These are identified within the strategy under the 4 overarching rationales for the refresh: population and demographics, legislation and policy framework, health inequalities, and national and local research. Providing unpaid care is often through a desire to support those we love. Carers step up to the challenge of either a gradual change in someone's needs or a sudden change due to a dramatic experience or diagnosis. Carers generally want to care, however, caring takes its toll, and therefore services need to support carers to enable them to continue to care. There is a moral, financial, and often legal necessity to support carers. Recent caring has been described as a social determinant of health due to the significant health inequalities experienced by carers, including higher rates of long-term health conditions, increased physical strain, mental health challenges, and financial impacts. The estimated economic contribution of unpaid carers nationally has been placed at £184 billion per year, which is the equivalent of the total NHS budget. Within our city, national research by Carers UK has calculated that locally the economic contribution of carers to Brighton and Hove is £618 million every year. The strategy provides a framework for identifying and supporting unpaid carers, which has been developed through consultation and includes a definition of a carer-friendly city. A carer-friendly city encourages unpaid carers to speak out about their experience and how caring affects them. It recognises their contribution, ensures they can access information, advice and support that will both assist them with their caring role and enable them to have a life outside of caring. Supporting carers is everyone's business. The city needs to think carer, reaching out to carers whenever that we can by understanding the daily reality of caring. Recognising that they are often under a lot of pressure and tend to be hidden from view, but must be involved in discussions and decisions regarding those that they care for. Through integrated partnership working, we can improve the lives of carers, assisting them to maintain a healthy lifestyle, make informed decisions regarding their caring role, maintain relationships with friends and family, balance work and caring, participate in education, access essential services for both the person they care for and for themselves, and reduce the known health inequalities that carers are affected by. The original strategy provided the foundations of the Carers Hub and carers' rights, And this strategy has continued to build on those foundations with a further 8 priority areas. All have been developed through consultation. Carer engagement, carer awareness, carer pathways, integrated services, carer registration, data collection, tackling health inequalities, and carer services. The framework provided within the strategy is to encourage service users to make a carer's commitment, a document or statement that shows the service or organisation actively encourages carers to identify themselves, promote the rights of carers and support them. Carers will be directly involved in the development of the carer's commitment process and related potential award through co-production. To promote a carer-friendly city, there will be a range of local campaigns, again developed through co-production, to raise awareness of carers and caring, to raise awareness of the central resource of the Carers Hub, and also prepare to care, a checklist approach for individuals and families to either discuss the gradually increasing needs of a family member or friend, or to respond to a sudden change and raise awareness of the support that can be addressed as soon as possible. The approval of this refreshed carers strategy is important to local carers, those who have been directly involved and those who will benefit from it. It recognises and values their contribution to our city. It addresses the known health inequality, providing a framework to improve the lives of carers. The mechanisms within the strategy will be developed through co-production, empowering carers to influence the city, to see them, to hear them and to support them. And organisations within the city will be able to show their support for carers through the carers' commitment and what carers can expect from services, truly supporting the continued development of a carer-friendly city. And I do want to thank officers for their work on this strategy, especially Gemma, who has led on the strategy. And I really want to say a big thank you to all of our city's unpaid carers, and I want to thank them for their kindness, their support, their dedication and their love. And I recommend that my colleagues support and approve the refreshed carer strategy 2026 to 2030. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Alexander, for your work and officers' work on this carer strategy. I think it's an incredibly important document, and I'm really pleased to see the work building on the previous 2 iterations of it. I think with a particular focus on, as we take this forward, ensuring that we are providing as much information and publicisation as possible to people who are perhaps increasingly taking on caring responsibilities, may not recognise themselves as being carers, because it can sometimes be quite a gradual process to ensure that all of the rights, entitlements and benefits that we in national government are offering are made really clear and accessible to people. Comments or questions, Councillor McGregor?
I just want to thank Councillor Alexander for all the work she's done on this. It sort of did make me realise that I was a carer as a kid. I never really thought about it, but my mum looked after my granddad, and he had Alzheimer's, and for people that have experienced it, like they almost have like attacks of Alzheimer's where it gets better and it gets a wee bit worse and it gets better and it gets worse. And a lot of that responsibility fell to, it was just me and my mum and my granddad in the house. And I never really thought about all the ways in which people didn't interact or didn't understand that we were carers. My mum got respite and we got respite under the last Labour government, which was essential to just kind of keep going. But it was through this process and hearing Councillor Alexander and everybody talk about being carers, I was like, oh God, actually, I was one, and I was looking after my granddad as well. I sort of just see it as a bit of a sort of traumatic experience, but it is actually, there was a lot of things there where we were, you know, helping him eat, helping him clean himself, all these different things, and I think it's just fantastic work that you're doing, but it's that sort of society part of helping people understand that we are carers, because like Councillor Sankey just said, it sort of creeps up on you quite quickly. So I just wanted to say that the work and reading through the whole strategy is fantastic, and I think there's a lot of work that we can do to kind of get it out there and get people like me go, oh, I was a carer as well.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Alexander, for your excellent presentation. So I represent the ward with the highest number of recorded unpaid carers. Nearly 12% of the residents I represent are marked as unpaid carers, and it's probably even higher than that, especially as things like children do not fill out census forms, the adults do. So it's probably even higher than that, which is quite stark. And when you look at the map, which I have out in front of me, of the areas of the city with the densest levels of unpaid carers, you have places like North Whitehawk, North Moulscombe, the Knoll Estate, Marl Oak. They are predominantly working class areas with an older population. And so that's why I really welcome this refresh strategy. It speaks to exactly the constituency the Labour Party was formed to speak up for and represent. And I think it's a really important pillar of the strategy that the council is using its networks to really plug in those gaps in support that carers often have. And I think there's often a kind of, to be frank, a martyrdom when it comes to being a carer, that you sacrifice so much of yourself in order to care for loved ones. And so if there is any way the council and other partner organisations in this city can help ease that burden, it's our moral duty to do that. And I think this framework helps us do that. So I completely welcome it.
Thanks, Councillor Allen. Councillor Sheard.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak about it mainly because when we talk about carers, so much time gets talked about all these amazing stories of people truly going above and beyond, as Councillor Allen was saying, for their loved ones. We tend to forget the impact it really does have, especially on young carers, especially on those people who haven't even finished education and are already doing something, doing a job which others are paid to do full time. And it really struggles to speak to the absolute amazing ability that these young people have, but also doesn't speak to, as Councillor McGregor talked about, that emotional impact it can have on you as you grow up. And so I'm really, really glad to see that we have actually put a genuine measure and a genuine stress in schools to identify young people. So many young carers end up dropping out of education early because they have to work as a full-time carer. And young people don't know how to interact with council services. They've not been taught that because they're too busy caring for the people who we as a society expect to teach them those kind of skills. And I think it is really important that we have this system in place. I'm really glad to see this coming through, and I hope, and I know, working with Councillor Alexander for as long as I have now, that she won't let this service be, this platform that has been developed here, which is so good, be prioritising those who know how to shout loudest and those who are, compared to the young people who are yet to find their voice when screaming for these. So I'm really glad to see this.
Thanks, Councillor Sheard. Any other comments or questions? In which case, I'd really commend this strategy, and I suppose the main steer I would give is we now have to really up our game and go over and above in terms of communication, because I think that's the missing piece at the moment. Even for people that I think have been doing long-term care, I think there are resources and support available that people just don't know about. So we need to, leave no stone unturned in terms of communicating what carers in this city are eligible for. And just want to reiterate Councillor Alexander's comments in terms of, putting on record our enormous thanks to the very many carers that operate in this city and give up so much time and give so much love to their loved ones. You are absolutely recognised and you are seen, and we want to do all we can as a council to support you. Thank you, colleagues. Are colleagues happy to accept the recommendation in the report? Agreed. Thank you. Our next substantive report today is on fire safety, and I'm going to ask Councillor Williams, please, to introduce the report on improving fire safety in council homes.
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks Cabinet approval to progress important fire safety improvements in our council homes using Homes England Cladding Safety Scheme funding, and also through the procurement and award of a Brighton and Hove City Council fire safety framework, I do want to emphasise at this point that the council does not have the type of cladding used on Grenfell Tower. This report relates to other facade or external wall materials that may require assessment or remediation. And we did lobby government when this funding became available to include this type of remedial work within that funding scheme, and we were successful at doing so. What is also important here is this helped to reduce significant pressure on housing revenue account, which already includes significant investment to keep our residents safe in their homes and supporting, of course, the compliance with Building Safety Act and fire regulations. The council has secured and received £4.7 million of Homes England cladding safety scheme pre-tender funding for 7 of our high-rise blocks, and the total anticipated pre-tender funding allocation is £6.007 million if Homes England funding is confirmed for the 9 high-rise blocks overall, and we expect funding for further blocks as we go along, but this is what we're looking at today. The recommendations allow the council to use this funding quickly and effectively to meet tight national scheme timescales. And the central purpose of the report is to enable the council to move at pace in appointing specialist professional teams needed for design, to specify, tender and submit a works package for any required external wall remediation works for high-rise blocks where funding has been approved or indeed is anticipated. Existing fire safety inspections, risk assessments and completion of actions and works arising continue. Any additional fire safety measures that the council has put in place, including waking watch or upgraded fire system alarm systems where required, remain in place while this work is progressed. It is important for us to reassure all of our council tenants that we are making sure you are safe, and we are working at pace to continue to do so. Tenants and leaseholders will continue to be kept informed as the programme develops, alongside ongoing engagement with Homes England, East Sussex Fire and Rescue Service, and of course the relevant regulators. The report also seeks approval to establish a Brighton and Hove City Council fire safety framework contract with an increased scope and value of £11.5 million over 4 years. So it's not just the here and now and the immediate remediation, it is the future safety of our council tenants that is really important here, and we are planning ahead. The proposed fire safety framework, not aligned to an additional budget request, it consolidates existing planned fire safety expenditure into a single competitively tendered framework. And this is intended to improve consistency, quality and value for money for tenants and leaseholders. Creating our own framework will also allow the use of, and this is really important to me, more local contractors in our area. It's really important for our communities and important for even community cohesion, for example. So I do hope you will approve this paper, and I do want to thank particularly Martin for all the extensive, intricate work that it's taken for us to get that far, and we've done ever so well, I will say, in securing this funding for our council. So happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Williams, and really echo that. Congratulations and well done for securing this in funding for such a vital issue. I've got Councillor Robinson, I think.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate what you just said. My notes are saying that I think Councillor Williams did an absolutely fantastic job. She was straight off the starting blocks after the election in July 24, getting her letter out to the Secretary of State for Housing, requesting specific funding for this very thing. So, well done.
Thank you. Councillor Mootum.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Williams, for your presentation. I certainly echo the thanks and well done for the work you've done in lobbying at Councillor Robinson's point there, lobbying Secretary of State for Housing to get this grant funding specifically for our city in those high-rise blocks. My understanding is that this applies to high-rise or certain high-rise within the Clarendon estate in my ward, Goldsmith ward, and I really value that. I know that community, the people resident in those blocks are going to be really help them considerably. That peace of mind are actually focused on improving their fire safety, enabling them to sleep better at night. But this is a priority, and I really value this report coming today, and the clear intent of this to work at pace to improve that safety through that particular facade, the type of cladding that's on there. We very, very welcome this, and I'm just perhaps reflect on what you said to say it's great to have this grant funding. It will be used for that purpose, and we're going to go at pace to make these particular blocks safer in our city. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Mooton. Any other comments or questions on this report? In which case, I'm just going to read the recommendations out, given the significance and importance of this work to our council tenants. And I'm not going to sneeze first. So today we would be agreeing to delegate authority to our Corporate Director for Homes and Adult Social Care in consultation with our lead member, Councillor Williams, to utilise allocated Homes England funding for improvements to fire safety in Brighton and Hove for all buildings with successful future bids, to also approve an HRA capital budget of over £6 million funded entirely by Homes England to allocate to the fire safety improvement works, that we would be approving the procurement and award of a team of consultants to carry out the design works and preparation of the tender documentation for the procurement of construction contractors to undertake the works, and that we would delegate authority to, again, the Corporate Director for Homes and Adult Social Care in consultation with our lead member, Councillor Williams, to enter into the contracts with the consultants for the 7 blocks that we have currently been allocated funding for, the block where funding has been approved but not yet received, and for any further blocks where Homes England cladding safety scheme funding may be awarded in future, and that we delegate authority to our Corporate Director in consultation with our lead member, Councillor Williams, to procure and award a Brighton and Hove City Council fire safety framework contract with increased scope to the approval given to the procurement forward plan in March of this year, with an increased value of £11.5 million over a 4-year contract length. Are Cabinet happy to agree these recommendations? Agreed. Thank you all. Our final report this morning is our Treasury Budget Management report, and I'm going to ask Councillor Taylor to please introduce it.
Thanks, Chair, and I think I'll be relatively brief. First of all, thank you for accepting the urgency report. Obviously, the report was slightly delayed, and this was because some bits of key data information came late and had to be included. This is the final TBM of the previous financial year, which we call outturn, which is effectively saying where do we get to for that financial year in terms of our overall budget. As we noted earlier, and as noted in the report, we have got to a break-even position on our general fund for the financial year, and that makes it the 3rd year in a row that as administration we have got to a break-even position. I don't want to spend too much time arguing with Councillor Sykes, who's no longer in the room, but the report, I think, sets out very clearly the issues that are at play and the actions that had to be taken, some of which were structural about budget management and some of which were one-off to get to that break-even position. And some of those are noted in section 3.3 of the report. Obviously, tightening of spending and recruitment controls, from November 2025 and delaying recruitment decisions till the new financial year. We reviewed earmarked reserves and released some of them. We also released, and again, we got some criticism for releasing reserves or risk provisions. As a reminder, we created the risk provision, 1.7 million, at year end of the previous year because we knew it would be a difficult budget. And so that's the kind of prudence we have to introduce to try and make sure we do get to break-even positions each year. Use of various capital receipts for transformation, which again is allowed within the framework and indeed encouraged in some cases by government. The creation of officer-led savings and delivery boards, as well as various other in-year and one-off actions to make sure we got to the point that we did. I just want to highlight in section 4.1 and 4.2 below shows the overall directorate positions. And clearly there's some fairly heavy variance within the different directorates, some that had quite a large overspend position and some that had a very significant underspend position. And I know Cabinet will be aware, but it's worth just reiterating what the sources of our real in-year pressures were. And section 4.3 really shows that demand-led budgets on some of our key care services were the real drivers of pressure, and we've talked about those services in lots of different contexts and all the things that we're doing to try and bring down those pressures, not least buying and building new council homes so that we don't have so many people in temporary accommodation. But you can see in that table that temporary accommodation accounted for 6.8 million of overspend in the year. The community care budget, so adult social care budget, 7.1 million, and then children's placements, 1.3 million. Those are, real drivers of overspend and pressure. And as we've said before, councils are a funny old thing to run because we have to provide statutory services over which the demand for which we have very little overall control, but that our funding is effectively fixed, which gets us into the tricky position that we're in. And as I say, we're not masking at all in this report. We're being very transparent about. Overall, I'm glad that we've got to a break-even position. I'm glad that in the actions that we've taken over 3 years, we have been rebuilding our working balance, but we are absolutely not painting a picture that everything is rosy. We know that in the forthcoming financial year, the one that we're in, and we've set a budget, we will continue to have to work really hard to mitigate these pressures whilst continuing to deliver all of the frontline services improvements that residents want to see. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Very much appreciated in all of the work to get to the break-even position and to keep investing in and planning for our medium-term financial sustainability. Does anyone have comments or questions on the TBM report? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd just add specific thanks to the Council's CEO and CFO, who do a fantastic job of making sure we're building a financially resilient local authority. I mean, Councillor Taylor said he doesn't want to relitigate Councillor Sykes' representation. I don't have the same restraint. What I heard was an opposition which has presented no alternative and yet is critiquing our strategy for breaking even. And given their last year, I think there is a real risk, actually, of amateurism and taking the eye off the ball of the financial strategy of this council should the administration change. And that is, frankly, the argument I will be taking to my residents when I go out campaigning and all across the city, that, nothing else matters if the books don't balance. That is a statutory responsibility this local authority has. And I don't hear any alternative from the opposition. I hear nothing from the Conservatives either, but a kind of general waving about cutting taxes and cutting waste, which frankly in this financial climate means cuts or other financial chicanery. So I'm really proud of the the laser focus this administration has on balancing the books. That's been demonstrated 3 years in a row now. No other group can say that.
Thanks very much, Councillor Allen. Any other comments or questions on the TBM report? Councillor Sheard.
I'm not going to echo what Councillor Allen said because he pretty much summed it up perfectly. I just also wanted to thank Councillor Taylor for his hard work on this as well, because he has put in I know he's put in a lot of time to this and has had a lot of other councillors moaning at him about why can't we do this and that. But thanks to his work, I think if we had seen the same overspend that we saw in 2023 over the last 2 years, we would now have put in a 114 notice with which, as we've seen in other councils, means 2/3 of libraries gone, road repairs gone, council tax going up by over 20% in some areas. So we have put in a lot of effort, and it's not always been pleasant. But I think what the alternative has been, and that has been presented to us, is genuinely nightmare fuel if you actually look into it. And so I want to thank Councillor Taylor for being slightly mean to us sometimes, but actually making sure that we can continue to operate and offer so many great services, some of which we've been talking about already this morning.
Thanks, Councillor Shears. All right, I'm just going to turn to the recommendations then. So we are agreeing today that we note the provisional general fund outturn position is a break-even position, which is the same as the projected and planned resource position at month 9 of last year, and taken into account when setting the 26-27 budget, the budget for this year, that we approve the general fund carry-forward request totalling 2.744 million as detailed in Appendix 5 of this paper and assumed within the provisional outturn. That Cabinet notes the provisional outturn for the separate housing revenue account, the HRA, which is an overspend of £0.378 million, and that Cabinet notes the provisional outturn position for the ring-fenced dedicated schools grant, which is an overspend of £1.762 million. The Cabinet notes the provisional outturn position on the capital programme, which is an underspend variance of just over £5 million. The Cabinet approves the capital budget variations and reprofiling requests set out in Appendix 7. The Cabinet approves new capital schemes requested in Appendix 8. The Cabinet notes the Treasury Management end-of-year review for 26-27 as set out as Appendix 10. And the Cabinet approves the transfer to earmark reserves of 3.91 million, which is assumed within the provisional outturn and discussed at 4.9 of this report. Does Cabinet agree those recommendations? Agreed. Thank you, colleagues. That just leaves me to say that we've now come to the end of our substantive reports for this morning's Cabinet meeting. Does Cabinet agree to the Part 2 minutes of the previous meeting as an accurate record? Agreed. Yeah, does Cabinet agree that the items listed in Part 2 today should remain exempt for disclosure to the press and public? Agreed. I will bring this meeting now to a close. Thank you, colleagues.